All right, all right. What's up, my man? We in the championship rounds. This is season 2. We in the championship rounds with King Amin and Essex, where we talk about boxing news and everything in between. This is season 2, episode 3. How you feeling, my brother?
Feeling great, man. We've been speaking behind the scenes. I got this home project going on, so it's kind of exciting. Painstaking in details, but what I'm saying, this is what you train the mind to endure all sorts of stressors and rigors. So this is just like preparing for the fight. This is like road works. It's like mitt work and everything else. So I'm loving it. Weather's good. Birthday's coming up. Let's go, champ.
All right, all right. Well, we always looking forward to Virgo season, August, all the August babies, shout out. But it's been a lot going on, right? In terms of boxing news and everything. But before we get into it, promote yourself, talk about the 2 platforms where people can find you.
Definitely. You guys know you can check me out on Instagram. That's King Amin of Essex 1. Checked out for the weekly blog, news and notes, anything going on in the world of boxing. Also check me out on the Boxing Voice podcast. I'm on there for the flagship shows and any other time I can, but definitely on Thursdays and Sunday nights. I was on there last night. I'll be on there this Sunday, rounding out the week's coverage. Check me out there, check me out here, and everywhere else that I need to be.
All right, all right. So as we do, we always talk about, popular events, things going on around the world of boxing or that impact the world of boxing. But, we always want to catch up on big fights or big events that have occurred. So, of course, we got to talk about the Charlo fight. So for those who don't know, this fight occurred, happened in San Antonio, big fight, 154-pound middleweight unification bout. Jermell Charlo versus Brian Castano. Very controversial, to say the least. Let's say that, right? A lot of people were kind of talking about, how the results ended up in the scoring. So I'm just going to, get right to it and ask you, what was your opinion on all the controversy? A lot of people were talking about how it was a draw. Did you agree with that? And what was your impressions?
I have an unpopular opinion.
Okay.
Right? The majority of my opinion is unpopular.
That's good.
Good. What I will concur is that the 117-111 card for Charlo was ridiculous. Okay. Absolutely ridiculous, right? So in that regard, I actually thought Charlo won the fight. Okay. And that's my unpopular opinion. People are going to say, why? You can't just, the pressure. Charlo, to me, lost the fight more than Castano won, and that does not discredit Castano. What I mean is the strategy Charlo used was off. He shouldn't have been trying to counter. He shouldn't have been trying to fight with his back on the ropes. When he was doing the work in the middle of the ring and, standing his ground more or less, that's when he was, being successful. But he spent a lot of time fighting the opposite strategy, or a strategy that I thought did not benefit him. Castano, it was a great fighter in his own right, and that's what great fighters do. So I agree with the draw. And that, I hope, isn't too much of an unpopular opinion, because you do get some people that are okay with it. Some people are a little disappointed. And by the way, if this was a gift to Charlo, then he would have won the fight by a split decision. So the draw is the fairest decision that could be offered when you don't think anybody, bested the other guy or one guy. Because so the irony of it, what do we call this? The championship rounds, right?
Yeah.
10 through 12, it looked different to certain people. Some people will have their scorecard a certain way, and the 10th round is exciting, and the fighter that they thought were down, they're looking and they're like, they're not even watching or looking at their scorecard, because from 10 through 12, that's what they're judging the championship rounds. And for some people, they thought Charlo swept those championship rounds, and what he did to hurt Castano was enough for them to give it to him, I don't exactly have that opinion. My scorecard was legitimately 115, 113. And again, it's fair that they be able to run it back. There's even talk that they're going to have some mandatories, or, Tim Tszyu could possibly fight Castano, and then Charlo could possibly face his mandatory. I think one of these Russian cats So and then revisit it. But that's what you want. These guys can walk away with their marketability, and they can walk away and get in good fights. You know what I'm saying? Whether you felt they're more vulnerable or they've solidified themselves, the next opponent will show, and then they meet again. And that's what we want out of boxing. It's a beautiful type of storytelling without, too much, fuckery involved, I would say.
Okay. This is a question I have. What did, impress you about Castaño's performance?
Castaño was able to apply pressure, and again, I would say respectfully, it was a lot of faux pressure, because when somebody back up against the ropes, you ain't got nothing to do but pressure him. But what he did was he made Charlo miss a lot. Even when Charlo was hurt, Castaño knew how to retreat, and that's what I think kept him in the game. I think a lot of people, they like the pressure that Castaño put on, but a fighter that backs up allows you to apply pressure. If Charlo changes his strategy, like most would expect him to do, like he did when he lost the Tony Harrison fight, it could be a totally different Charlo that he faces. So, Castaño hurt Charlo. I mean, listen, South Central, he a man, Buddha, you dig? So he got punching power, you know what I'm saying? So he hurt Charlo, and he was able to not only hurt Charlo, it was smart. He didn't try to go in for the kill and wipe himself out and wear himself out or blow his load. You know what I mean? He was able to hurt Charlo and kind of, stay in a focused mode and continue to apply pressure. And that's what made people, believe that Castaño won the fight. And that's fair.
So, I didn't ask you about this. We didn't talk about this before, but I just kind of wanted to ask you. So, I kind of saw some comments from Charlo after the fight, right? So I wanted to know, what do you think his position is on a rematch, right? Because I don't remember exactly what he said, and I'm not implying at all that he said that he lost, but I think he acknowledged a little bit that his performance might have not been as impressive or as dominant as most people would have expected, or even himself. I think that's what I got from it. So I wanted to know, what did you get from it, and what do you think his position is on that?
I can paraphrase it because it was a very honorable statement in what he said, that Castaño is a hell of a fighter, and he would not have appreciated getting a split decision. He don't think he would have deserved a split decision or any type of controversial win over the type of a fighter like that. So he is happy to run it back.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And that's exactly, and that's why you see I was stepping very light when I said it, because the feeling that I got when I read the statement was similar to that. You understand what I'm saying? It was somewhere between responsibility and definitely not running from a rematch. But go ahead. So go ahead, elaborate.
No, and that's honor. That's all honor. That's all honor, because again, he's saying, but again, that's why I emphasize the gift would have been a split decision to Charlo. You know what I'm saying? And look, so what I think about the rematch, Jermell is the one, I mentioned it in my blog on Instagram. Jermell is the one that if you had two twins in a room and you can't distinguish the two, take out their resumes. Jermell is the one that's, again, fighting for undisputed, to unify. You get what I'm saying? Right. He fought Tony Harrison. He fought Jason Rosario. Like, he fought these guys. So, you know what I mean? So he ain't going to shy away from the rematch. Now, if there's some business that tells him, hey, you got a Russian cat, you can fight in Miami for a couple more M's and then go back and do that tough fight for even more M's than that last fight, then you would expect him to choose that trajectory. You know what I'm saying? I saw, not making excuses for any fighter, but I guess we could understand if there was some sort of business situation, unless the money was well worth it. I don't see, again, because Castaño, who Castaño's ready. Of course he is. This is the biggest fight he's had, and this is probably the biggest payday he's had. So, of course, he's ready to run it back. But you think somebody ain't going to tell Castaño, hey, if they got $5 million for you to fight Mel, but we got $4 million because you just fought Mel and you got a draw with him, we got $4 million for you to fight this other guy. Shit, we got $6 million for you to go to Australia and do it. He may say, well, hold up on this unification. Because y'all talking about adding another $1.5 million to unification, but I can go get $6 million because it's Australia and this guy's got a big name if he fights a Tim Tszyu, hypothetically speaking. So you got to remember the business that this brings. The fans might want them to get back in the ring, right? But if some type of proper business steps in and these guys is able to put more steaks in the fridge or whatever vegan, I mean, they on, you know what I mean? Let him do that.
Right, that definitely a good point, man. Definitely. So I mean, listen, man, we got a lot to look forward to potentially down the line with those, with that. And who knows, it might open up opportunities for both guys,
Sure.
So that's a good thing. All right, so moving on to another unification bout, another one that's very highly anticipated. We kind of been waiting for Canelo and Caleb Plant, waiting for this fight to be made since the eighth round stoppage of Billy Joe Sanders, where we seen what Canelo did to his eye. No disrespect to Billy Joe Sanders, but it was brutal. So again, we got Canelo Alvarez, 56, 1-2, 38 knockouts. Caleb Plant, 31-0, 12 knockouts. They're finalizing September 8th bout in Las Vegas. So we're gonna have the background. We're gonna have all the glitz and glamour, which I think this fight deserves, right? And I think obviously it's gonna be a payday for both of them, but I think they should get some credit for the fight getting made. But the people want to know what you think. So first and foremost, are you surprised that it got made? And what do you expect kind of from it?
So Canelo has options. And am I surprised the fight got made? Not really, because Caleb Plant was always one of those options. But I think of all the options I would like to see, this is it. This is the one. Good fight. I think, when you talk about what some of the challenges are or is as they, solidify this thing, it's always going to come down to money. Caleb Plant is worth a certain amount of money. And what I mean by that is not only is he undefeated and he has, legitimately the other belt, right? Thanos with the motherfucking Infinity Stones, right? You want to get the gauntlet, right?
Definitely.
So you can't be like, yo, I'm Canelo, you should just fight. Like, remember that transferability of equity we just talked about between Castaño? So now, Plant, no. Now, respectfully, of course he believe he got a chance. He gonna fight the man. But sometimes, certain days you might tuck that deuce 5 in your gym because you like, yo, yeah, I can fight, but right. So
I know my opponent. Know what I'm up
against. Yes. That deuce 5 and a 10 would essentially be that financial compensation. And I'm saying Kovalev, who lost already and was pretty much suspect as far as his viability, rumors about his alcohol usage and his consistency in training and all sorts of things like that by the time Canelo fought him, and I think he got 10 mil. I think Caleb Plant has every right to say, yo, give me 15. They say, get the fuck out of here. He says, all right, well, hold up. I could do, 14 and a half, 13. They say, yo, come on. And then he said, look, 12 and a half, give me $500,000 to gamble with, comp me, a private jet, and get my wife on one of Canelo broadcasts, and you got yourself a fucking deal. Because that is incentive and it's motherfucking cushion. You get what I'm saying? But you can't offer him the same $8 million that you offered Billy Joe and expect that man to jump. 10 mil is okay, but maybe the 10 mil in that nice little care package with the $500,000 to gamble in the hotel rooms. You know what I'm saying? Because again, the transferability. If the man go in there and get destroyed and having fought Canelo, people are gonna relegate his whole career as to having been a wash. See, he wasn't shit. Cause soon as he fought Canelo, look what happened to him. He only beat Caleb Truex. He only beat Uzgatigi. He only beat so. He's not going to get a lot of transference of marketability if he gets stopped by Canelo and getting, going the distance with Canelo. I think that would help him. But again, his mind is going to be on beating Canelo, but you got to have a nest egg. You got to have a retirement plan. And the payday that Canelo offers you, you better be thinking about that back end, win or lose, because you need the financial compensation up front. And the back end will be the transfer of equity as you negotiate other fights. The guy that, I don't know, does he have the power to hurt Canelo? But say he does, say he makes Canelo, take a knee. All these things You know what I'm saying? It's like looking at a credit report. You might not, you know what I'm saying, have the best number, but there are things that help your credit score or they go against your credit score, and you got to look at that. And you know, but it's a great fight to be made. Great fight to be made. It's got to be made. I'm glad that it's happening, and I just hope we don't hear nothing at the last minute that because of Canelo's unwillingness to fairly compensate Caleb Plant, I hope that's not a reason why this fight is delayed or does not happen.
No, I agree with you, man. I think the compensation is why the only reason why somebody like Plant does, takes this fight, doesn't avoid it, those type of things, right? That's the exchange, right? That compensation in that comfort. I think that should be expected. If they lowball them, then it's not worth it. You understand what I'm saying?
And Caleb Plant walking away because he was lowballed should not be considered a duck. Like I said, they gave somebody that had a questionable determination and a questionable training ethic and already 2 defeats. You know what I'm saying? They gave him 10 or 11 mil, whatever they gave him. Then they gave Billy Joe, who was holding the title hostage, and a great fighter fight-wise, but a very inactive schedule, the same inactivity they criticized Boo Boo for. And, no big wins to know of other than Willie Mongoose, right? Willie Monroe out of, out of Rochester, right? So, you gave him 8. Right. Caleb Plant, again, he's undefeated, and he's got the belt, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm going to spin it a little bit this way, and people can make of it what they want, but the marketing of it, and I'm not implying that Caleb Plant has to think or feel this way, but you do. If you're going to market it, race-wise, people are going to always, side behind their culture and their ethnicity. So you definitely will have the Mexican fans in droves coming out. And you definitely going to have, you know what I'm saying? And this is what will determine what will Caleb Plant supporters and fans turn up to be. How will they present? How will they view this fight? You get what I'm saying? Is it going to be mixed with a hip hop generation? He's originally from, I believe he's from Nashville, right? And he's been out in Vegas, so he knows a lot of the hip hop crowd. He's of a certain age, or is it going to be a different type of element that comes out to support Plant? But we're going to see that, because soon as Wilder Fury, anytime you got that dynamic or a clash of cultures, the fans rear their head. So we're going to see what kind of fans rear their head.
All right. Well, we're going to be looking forward to that. Moving on to another kind of surprising, at least for me, bit of news in terms of boxing in general. Terrance, Bud Crawford versus Shawn Porter. We had a title fight that's been ordered by a WBO. Crawford had been expected to fight Jose Zapata on, I think that's October 23rd. And they issued a letter that was sent out to the promoters ordering them to kind of negotiate this fight. They have 30 days, to do it. It was reported as an unexpected move to most of us. I know you might have your ear to the street in a different way. So what is your thoughts? Was it unexpected to you? Let's just start with that.
I mean, it was anticipated because it was talked about for some time, but the fact that a sanctioning body is getting involved, I think that means that there's enough money on the table. Now, the factors that always prevent a fight from happening, a lot of times, respectfully, is Top Rank Boxing and Bob Arum, depending on how he feels about the fighter, his fighter. You see how he did with Tio. You see how he's spoken of Bud Crawford in the past. Right. So, and then his view of the potential opponents. Now, let me talk about if Crawford was going to fight Zapata. That's a terrible fight. 140-pounder who just got roughed up a little bit by Hank Lundy, and Hank Lundy has been around for a long time. 140-pounder, you're gonna move up and fight 147-pound Terrance Crawford, but that's in-house top-ranked diet, man. That's like one time somebody told me in the restaurant business, man, don't order the soup. You know what I mean? All they do is water it down and reheat it, man. It's terrible, man. It's just fucking terrible. So that would have been a terrible fight. So boom. Shawn Porter, he has a very glorious reputation for always fighting whoever they pretty much put in front of him. I gotta say that. Everybody in the welterweight division, he's been in there with Danny, Thurman, and Earl. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the top of the top, right? Lost to Thurman, lost to Earl, beat Danny, right? Beat some other guys at 147. But if Bud Crawford is going to say, like, this is what makes it such a great fight. If Bud Crawford's going to say, nah, fuck that Earl Spence shit, fuck that Thurman shit, even fuck that Pacquiao shit, I'm the best at 147. Fighting 140-pounder ain't going to do it, Jack.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So thankfully, he's fighting a battle-tested Shawn Porter, who, if Bud Crawford is who we all think he is at 147, he gonna have to get past the Dudder Man first. You feel me?
Right.
Shawn Porter's the Dudder Man. That's PBC's Dudder Man. You feel me?
I ain't mad at you. Like, and that kind of leads me into my next question. So, do you believe Terrance Crawford? You believe Bud Crawford when he says, you know, I've been begging for a real challenge for years? Do you believe him, or is that disingenuous?
Yo, Jay, you know, married men ask their, no, listen. Married men ask their wife for threesomes, but you asking your wife because she's in control. He's been begging for that fight, but he ain't in control. He got to ask Bob Arum. You feel me? So if Bob ain't let him do it, begging for the fight ain't gonna do you no good. You coming to the dinner table, yeah, babe. You know, I sure wish we. You know, so what you do? You in the gym? Hey, Terrance, I got Zepeda for you. Man, I sure wish I could get.
Right.
It's that contractor. But you know what I'm saying? Like, you sure wish you could get, but she ain't gonna let you do it. You know how your wife is, man.
So then, I mean, so let me ask you, like, is it different, you know, between like top ranked PBC and all that in terms of what's different? I mean, I know we kind of getting off track a little bit, but
No, this is
different,
good.
what's different in terms of the level of control? Like, who does anybody operate differently? Like, you know,
I'll give you a simple analogy. PBC fighters operate like those guys on Rock Nation.
it seems like that.
You could be signed to a deal, and I don't want anybody to misconstrue Rock Nation's involvement in boxing. I mean how the music industry functions in terms of independence. You might just be working with somebody for marketing. You know, they might, you know, put you in certain positions where they say, look, you got a little promotional company. All right, me and your promotional company gonna work together with this promotional company, so you get a piece of that. You got some fighters under your promotional company, so somebody like Adrian Broner can come to the table, AB Promotions, Robert Easter, Rashi Warren, and if he can talk his way into a fight, that's 3 fighters on the card. Where y'all want to do this at? Vegas? We're drawing Ohio. Do the fight in the Midwest somewhere, right? Or you go do the fight in Atlanta. Do the fight, you know what I'm saying? And as a fighter, you're going to have more of that pie if you can justify why you're getting it. The fighters on Top Rank are often in a position where, all right, boom, I'm getting $5 million a fight. I'm getting $1.3 million a fight. And you can't go to that man. Remember that conversation we had yesterday? You can't go to that man and say, yo, I heard you got $60 million off that fight. You only paid me 1.3.
Right.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? He might have got 80 off of it, but that's what you get. That's what I offered to you. You know what I'm saying? And you took it. You're not in a situation where we said, all right, boom, you take this $500,000 up front and then you get a piece of the pay-per-views on the back end if we think you're a pay-per-view fighter. You know what I'm saying? You know, these guys at Top Rank, they don't have those sorts of options because, quite frankly, I think the management over there, the business model, and that's why I use the music industry, it's antiquated. It's still, we don't think you can do that. So this is what we think you're worth.
Right.
And for some people that work because they say it's money I never had.
Right.
But then it might bother them if they said, well, you know, yeah, I know I said, you know, 1.5 is good. And all before then, I only got 250,000 and then 500,000 and then 750. And I know I said 1.5, but, you know, you so-and-so got 2.5 and I heard you got, that's not what you agreed to. You have to be able to make some sacrifices.
Well, it's the difference because you already know, like, unless you take some risk, it doesn't matter if you outperform your contract. You know what I'm saying? Like,
then you're at the mercy of someone you know, to appeal to your emotional position more so than to compensate you as per your business agreement.
Yeah, man, that's interesting, man. I guess, you know, that's why you see like Earl Spence and even I know Manny Pacquiao is people got their opinions, but I'm saying those are two exciting names to hear, at least for me to hear, right? It's something I'm going to watch. Like maybe that's why they got a little bit more action and bigger names over there at PVC.
And think about it. Manny Pacquiao was a long-time fighter on Top Rank. And that's why, again, using the music industry model, everybody that was on Top Rank, it was signed to Interscope, they're independent now. They're doing something different. You get what I'm saying?
Okay. I'm gonna ask you off the air who else who was Mayweather with early in his career?
Top Rank.
Okay. I didn't want to sound stupid, but I thought
Manny Pacquiao.
He was too.
That's recently. But again, his last fight with Thurman, pay-per-view. His fight with Adrian Broner, pay-per-view. Because they have a way for you to say, yo, we don't have to say, yo, Manny, I'll give you 10 million and then you get nothing else on the back end. Manny, I could give you 8.5, and because we're gonna work this out, I'll give you, whatever you get on the Philippines back end on the pay-per-view. Because if we go pay-per-view, we stand to split more money. You could take this guarantee and we could put it on Showtime, and we could, split the advertising dollars, or we could put it on pay-per-view and get that direct in-pocket money. Right. That's why he's with Earl Spence, pay-per-view. You get what I'm saying?
I can dig it. All right, that's a good topic. That's a good convo. I think maybe like on another show, we should probably kind of delve into that a little bit below the surface in terms of because I know at least that's something that I didn't completely understand at first. You know what I mean? Yeah. In terms of why certain fighters was over certain places. I certainly didn't think that the leadership and management styles had that much of an impact on what we kind of see in the ring ultimately. So maybe we could talk about it later, but maybe that's something we kind of chop up about later. Sure. I know you got opinions of it. So I'm not gonna necessarily call this boxing news, but this is fighting news. We got Logan Paul and Anderson Silva in talks for a boxing match, basically. We all know who Anderson Silva was, legend, former UFC legend, 46 years old, man. I didn't know he was 46 years old. But him and Logan Paul's 26, obviously just fought Floyd Mayweather in that exhibition. Listen, they're in talks for a boxing match. So what do you think about that? Obviously, he's the brother of Jake Paul. We'll kind of talk about that later. But what do you think of this match?
I'm going to point out something that, should resonate with those that are paying attention to what's happening. Because, this is what's happening now. We're going to get these, these spectacles, right? But the 46-year-old Anderson Silva just beat Julio Cesar Chavez Jr.
Yeah, Mexico.
Professional fighter.
Yeah.
He just beat a professional fighter. Maybe not the most dedicated, maybe not even the most skilled, but a professional fighter with at least 30, 40 professional fights. I'm going to give Silva the advantage.
Okay.
Because that transference of coming out of there with so I'll put it to you like this. I think Logan, he don't think he got a chance of beating Chavez Jr. unless Chavez Jr. just can't stomach it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I can't not give the advantage. Again, we're talking novice versus professional. Right. I don't know, and I can't measure the novice background of Logan versus the novice background of Anderson Silva. All I can say is Anderson Silva had been training for a Roy Jones fight since 2004. And he's had like a few professional fights again. And his most recent professional fight was against a professional fighter in Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. He beat him. So I'm going to say that Logan doesn't have the skills to beat Anderson Silva. Even though he might think he does, or he might think that just that young brute strength, and having been in there with Floyd. But again, transfer it to marketability. Suppose Silva exposes this guy. People either want to see him exposed, or they're going to say, well, no, because he was in there. It's just the bullshit phrase of it. He was in there. The fuck? I was in the same building as Jay-Z. Don't mean I was ever close to doing a song where I was in there with Jay-Z because I was under the same fucking roof as him, right? So they're going to say Logan was in there. He was in there with Flip. No, he wasn't just in there. He fought him. He fought somebody he didn't have a fucking chance of beating. Yeah, cool, great. So I give the edge to Anderson Silva.
All right. So kind of just pivoting off that, not to really talk about Logan. I'm really kind of talking about Anderson Silva with this question. And if anybody else, I'm kind of talking about his brother, Jake Paul, maybe. Some of these guys, with the focus that we see some of them putting into, right? Whether it be Jake Paul, and I know Anderson Silva is in another category than Jake Paul and Chad Johnson. But what I'm saying is, we see guys taking their training serious, right? And actually getting wins against people who have experience professionally, whether they're UFC or boxing background. Is it fair to say that it's they are celebrity boxing exhibitions, but is it fair to say that they're bad for the sport?
You know, I read somewhere the other day that this is the most young, the young demographic has been tuning into boxing since the guys have involved themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether that's true or not, but the true value of their involvement in the sport is like the residual fans, the residual following. So do you only tune in to see those spectacles? So do you stick around and do you watch Pacquiao Spence and understand the significance of that? Or are you only tuning in? Because, in my best interest to be objective, I got feelings and all, but I'm trying to give these guys a chance. But if only, people are tuning in when they fight and people are not falling in love with boxing again, you know what I'm saying? Like, is there some other metric or more kids joining the fucking, I bet you more kids is on YouTube, but I can't say that more kids are joining fucking gyms because of these guys. And so I really don't know what the interest other than I hope there are fighters that are able, both marketing wise and physically, that can capitalize on their involvement. Take advantage of these opportunities, win or lose. You know what I'm saying? Take advantage, get paid.
Okay. As we always do, you know what I mean? We got that beautiful music in the background, baby. That's progress being made. You know what I'm saying? So we're gonna embrace that. You know what I'm saying? But as we always do, we're gonna do the ABCs of boxing, where we kind of break down something. In the past, in the first season, we were kind of doing different aspects in terms of like just some kind of psychoeducation about different aspects of boxing. This season, we're focusing on historical fighters. So we got something real interesting this week. We're gonna talk about James Scott. I kind of learned a lot in just looking at this. So you talk about James Scott, I ain't gonna ruin it, but this is a dynamic dude. So just let's talk a little bit about his background, like some demographic info, where he's from, that type of stuff.
James Scott was born in Newark, New Jersey. He was one of many children, and he had an unfortunate start, in and out of reformatories. He did some time very early in Jamesburg. That's the youth house, youth facility down here in Jersey. So he had some challenges, streets got a hold of him early. And, he had some experience as a little bit, of fighting, but not really boxing. And he definitely happened to find boxing during his incarceration at, it was formerly called Rahway State Prison. Now it's East Jersey State Prison out here in Carteret, New Jersey. So yeah, it's one of those things to where it goes beyond somebody learning how to defend themselves while they're incarcerated. This man literally learned the sport and was able to establish a career, televised fights and things, throughout his time.
Now that was the craziest part of just even learning about is hearing, I think it was Larry Merchant, when they were in the prison. You know what I'm saying? I don't know where they recorded it, but that's crazy, man, because they said it was the first ever televised boxing match from inside a prison.
Yeah.
So it just when you were saying that, you always be like, yo, boxing saves lives, all of that. that's a direct kind of connection right there. So that's what I was thinking about when I saw that, man. It was crazy, you know. So talk a little bit, if you can, about, I mean, if he had a trainer, like who, I don't know who was training him, like what the program, I guess, a little bit looked like.
Yeah, yeah.
What was the style of boxing fighting?
So the program, was started, I think, by one of the wardens and one of the, guys in there. And at the time you had some fighters also too. The world famous, Reuben Hurricane Carter was incarcerated in there as well. And he had taken Scott up under his wing and mentored him. So you had a couple guys. Also, he would go on to, he started off as Eddie Gregory, and he would go on to change his name to Eddie Mustafa Muhammad. He was also did some time. He's from Brooklyn, but he did some time over there. And also most famously, DMX got a line in Keep Your Shit the Hardest, talking about doing some time in Rahway State Prison as well. So this is an institution that, I don't want to say it's famous for some celebrities, but, there were opportunities in there where guys, got together and sharpened their skills. You know what I'm saying? And Eddie Gregory had, got released and went on to do his thing. Hurricane Carter, he did over 20 years and his career was ended due to his incarceration. But Scott, on the other hand, built his career fighting within the prison system. And he got to the point to where, he was fighting club level fighters. They would bring him in and move him around and allow him to fight. And, some of the sanctioning bodies and some of the trainers was even keeping their guys away from him because they heard about this dude, that was going hard.
Right. It's crazy, man. So the fight I was watching, obviously I was watching the Eddie Gregory fight that you sent me. That was, that was for a lightweight championship, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, man, that was light heavyweight, man. And the beautiful part about that is, man, again, Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, he served time on his own and he had done some time there. So he had changed his life and gone on to establish a great career. How can I forget my man, Dwight Muhammad Kwawi as well? He did some time there. And again, he fought there as well. And again, these guys all, mixed it up. And steel sharpens steel, man. Iron sharpen iron. So as far as Eddie Gregory at the time, again, Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, he was the number one contender, and so honorable because he heard about James Scott and he said, "Yo, I'm gonna give him a shot." Now I'm sure it was a nice bag too. You know what I'm saying? But first televised fight, from a prison system, and he gave James Scott an opportunity to show how good he was on a world stage, man. And so, very tough fight, and it goes to show, a lot of people thought Eddie Gregory was the favorite because he was the boxer. Similar to what we're talking about with this whole thing, and I don't want to call it a spectacle, but for its day, imagine that was quite a spectacle, Jay, right? Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, we knew about guys that had done time and come home, but televised, pay-per-view, Showtime, on like from prison, that in of itself is a kind of a spectacle. And people gave the edge to the professional fighter, but it was in fact the unorthodox trained fighter, the non-traditional fighter, won that fight by decision, man.
Well, I'll tell you, man, like when you watch, because I watched what you sent me, they were showing a lot of respect at the end of the fight, Yeah. So I think, every probably fighter in some way in their mind, feels like they won, but I think, he kind of knew how that fight was going to be decided, and he gave Scott a lot of respect at the end of that fight. Like you could see it, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I think it was more representative of the moment too, where it was happening and all of that, right? Because that's overcoming a lot of adversity. I mean, obviously those conditions, training, everything else you got to deal with, and then getting yourself, to that point, to win that type of bout. So that's a good one, man. Definitely a good one.
Yeah, man.
So of course, with all that, kind of expanded convo, I'm not gonna ask you why you picked them. That's kind of obvious with the Boxing Saves Lives and the interesting part of the Rahway prison program, boxing program. But we're gonna skip to the last question, the most interesting one to me. So if you was building your own fighter in a video game, what part of James Scott would you take and use, and why?
Well, I gotta say his will. You gotta take his will as a fighter
Okay.
because to be self-trained and to persevere. And if you think boxing's dirty now, can you imagine back then as far as, handshakes and, those kind of, Charles Farrell type, situations and everything.
Right.
I would take his will because he had to feel as though he could prepare himself in order to fight to that level, took his opponent extremely serious, but he felt like he had to be and he was going to be prepared for that moment at that time. And that takes remarkable will. So, again, knowing that he doesn't have the same facilities and the same tools and the same resources, and knowing that you can prepare yourself to compete at the world level, that takes a hell of a will. And that's what you need, to either get up from a certain shot, or sometimes you take a certain lick and man, this ain't my night. You know what I mean? So you have to have the will to win, but you have to have the will to know. And this man had a remarkable will.
All right, that's a fact, man. So, last but not least, before we get out of here, before you promote yourself, we always like to talk about upcoming fights. So we got a heavyweight fight coming up, Joe Joyce and Carlos Takam. So what do you think about this fight? What are you expecting from these fighters? And why should we be on the lookout, interested in this?
Joe Joyce just came off a big win against Daniel Dubois, who was the potential contender right on the fringes of the top of the heavyweight division. And man, listen, the heavyweight division is always exciting. Every heavyweight fighter is one punch, one fight away. So here we are. What was supposed to have been the weekend where we get Wilder versus Fury 3. This fight would have been in the shadows of that, but still, you know what I mean? All of these fights would have, and this fight still does have its implications because Joe Joyce is undefeated. Again, he kind of, slowed down the momentum of a very notable prospect. And I think this is something Carlos Takam has gotten a lot of work stateside, and he's fought the best of the division. I think it'll be time for Joe Joyce to come stateside and step it up. People might not like it, but I think he's due for a fight against just for a stateside debut, against, some of the young guys in the division. Some people like F.A. Jabba, maybe Jared Anderson's a good pick. But, since since he likes going up against the prospects, those are two hot heavyweight prospects. So only time will tell. But this fight, it should be pretty entertaining. But it's all we got, the lone action of the weekend, because, we thought we had something else going. But, even, a fight the size of a mustard seed is still seasoning.
I
I
hear you, man. I'm gonna let you tell me about that one. But listen, George, no, I'm just playing. I'm definitely, I'll check him out. Even if I end up, checking it out after it happened. But good fight for everybody to tune into. Joe Joyce versus Carlos Takam. So before we get out of here, of course, one of the most important parts of the show, you got to promote yourself. So let people know where to find you and when to find you.
Yes, sir. Don't forget, check us out. We uploading episodes each and every week of the championship rounds. Also, go to Instagram and follow me, King Amin of Essex 1. You get all the breaking news and notes. You get your weekend coverage. It's the place to be if you want to know what's happening and who's doing it. And also, don't forget to check me out on the Boxing Voice TBV podcast on YouTube, flagships, Thursdays, Sundays, and any other days that I can. I'm your man. Definitely support. Drop a like, drop a comment. Check out our videos, man. And stay dangerous out there, y'all.
All right, my brother. You take me out with the bell. We ready. Later.